All right, hello. Today I am talking about growth mindset, basically what it is, how it can be applied to your life, and how it can work for you in your health and fitness journey. Super excited to be talking about this today. I figured that this would be a really good place to start for these monthly webinars because I think that going into future webinars, it will be good to have an orientation towards growth mindset. And I think a lot of you will be informed about how you might be having a fixed mindset without really realizing it. So we'll go over like different characteristics of it, different things that someone might say with a growth versus fixed mindset, some misconceptions, and then a little activity. So I'll wait a few more minutes to see if anyone jumps on the live call, and then we will go from there. So yeah, I'll probably start in a couple of minutes just to see if anyone will join. Yes, pretty excited about this. Oh, there's a line here. But cool. And I don't think this should take too long. I've got about 12 slides. And if there's no one on the call, the last thing that we're going to do is an activity. So I'll like walk through the activity, and if you're watching the replay of this, then hopefully I walk through it slow enough, but you can always pause it, think through what you want to write down. There's no rush in doing any of it. In terms of like, you don't have to do it in like in the 3 minutes that I might go over it, since there's no one, if there's no one on the call. Yeah, I guess I will go ahead and get started. So I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully this will work the way I want it to. All right, so I'm going to present. Cool. Okay, so I think it should be sharing. I really hope so. But again, we're going through growth mindset today, basically an introduction of the growth mindset. So, oh no, my little picture isn't showing up. Okay, but today the learning outcomes are going to be understanding the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset. So I want you to be able to figure out basically just know the differences so that you can start to identify them yourself. And that's the second learning outcome, is basically identifying situations where you have a growth mindset or maybe you have a fixed mindset, and just realizing like in every situation that you're in, can you pick out whether or not you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And I will say that sometimes it's really hard to, when you're in the moment, and having a coach, someone like me, to point those things out are going to be really important. And it doesn't always have to be a coach; it can be someone else, but just someone that you'll be open to listening to, because it can be really beneficial for that feedback, so that you can begin to change to a growth mindset if you do notice that you're having a fixed mindset. And then the last learning outcome is being able to practice skills to help you foster a growth mindset. But yeah, optional is having new mental skills for your, excuse me, I forgot my water, to heal your health and fitness goals. Or for your health and fitness goals. I don't know why I said heal. All right, so the first thing that I want to go through is before we identify what growth mindset and fixed mindsets are, it's really important to know what the term neuroplasticity means. So basically, for a long time, there's been a big debate about whether or not your brain can change. Can we create new brain cells? Can we create new brain connections? And this research on neuroplasticity has shown us that it is possible to do these things. So the neuroplasticity is basically the study of how the brain adapts to various environments and changes as humans take new actions or experience new things. So basically what this is saying is that you can form new connections in your brain when you're doing something new. So it's basically saying that if you don't know how to play the violin and you're 35, you can learn to play the violin. Does that mean you're going to be as good as you would be if you would have started when you were, 6? No, probably not, because that's 30 years of practice that could have been done within. But it's saying that you have the ability to learn new skills. And this is going to be really important when it comes to a growth mindset. So just knowing that you can build new pathways and connections in the brain. So right now, I just want you to think about what's one thing that maybe you started trying to learn last year, and this year compared to last year, you're much better at it. Maybe it's something in the gym, it's squatting, maybe you have better form or technique, and that's shown by you being able to lift more weight. Or, maybe it's taking place with nutrition and you didn't really know how to meal prep and now you're a pro at it. Like you could do it in 2 hours and have your meals ready for the week and feel pretty confident in doing that. Those are both skills that you have to acquire, and neuroplasticity is the way that you do that. All right, so improving neuroplasticity. I just want to go through this real quick because I think it's important when it comes to health, fitness, nutrition, like all this kind of stuff. You can actually improve your neuroplasticity, and that can be done through something called, or this is one way that it improves, which is through a chemical known as BDNF, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So basically, all you have to know about that is basically it's the brain's fertilizer. When you produce this BDNF, you can make more connections, new connections in the brain, or you can make the connections better, stronger. So as you're learning, basically what BDNF comes in and does is it helps form these pathways and connections for you. So not only the individual neuron, but the neural pathway, which is multiple neurons connecting to each other and that's how we send signals through the brain. And the reason that I bring this up is because one of the more researched ways of actually producing BDNF is through exercise, specifically endurance exercise. Now, that doesn't mean that weight training or resistance training or some other form of athletics or activity doesn't produce any BDNF, but there are just a lot of studies around endurance exercise showing that that prolonged exercise just increases the BDNF production. So if you've ever noticed that maybe you work out in the mornings and then you go to work later that day or school, and it feels like your brain is just firing a little bit faster, or you're understanding concepts better, or you just feel like you're more dialed in and focused into whatever you're doing that day, it could potentially be because of this BDNF. It's helping you with making those connections in your brain or strengthening the connection that's already there. So if you want to experience improved memory or improved skill within like school or work, or I mean, honestly, anything, doing exercise before could be helpful in advancing that. So basically what it does is just allow us to change and grow. And this is the entire thought process behind growth mindset. One more thing before I get into what growth mindset versus fixed mindset is that it does have a connection to intrinsic motivation. So in a future webinar, I will be talking about motivation, but what I want you to know right now is intrinsic motivation is basically your ability to drive actions from within rather than trying to achieve a goal for an outcome. So an example would be, I want to work out and diet to lose weight. So that's extrinsic motivation because you're trying to get to a certain number on the scale versus I want to lift weights and fuel my body properly to feel strong and more confident in my body. So you're doing it for a reason within you, instead of this external thing. And usually with intrinsic motivation, the more that we can harness this, the more likely we're going to be able to follow through on the goals that we've set for ourselves. And there's a lot that goes into motivation. So I don't want to get too far into that, but basically what I want you to know about it is the more that we can foster a growth mindset, the better our intrinsic motivation will be. And therefore, the more likely we will be able to reach our goals or follow the process that should, in theory, help us reach our goals. I mean, don't if you don't already know goals, the path to goals is not always linear, or the goal that we set for ourselves may not be always the goal that we end up achieving. So just keeping that in mind as well. Cool. All right. So types of motivation, or sorry, types of mindset. So mindset is really like the underlying aspect that guide us through our lives. It's the way that we see and perceive situations, and based on our perception is a way that we're going to respond or react. And we're not going to talk a lot about this today, but I would basically fostering a growth mindset will help you be better responders rather than reactors. So what a growth mindset is just understanding that your abilities can be developed through skill acquisition. So a person who has a growth mindset believes that you can become smarter, you can become more able, you can become more intelligent by putting in time and effort. And what I mean by more able is you get better at physical skills. So it's not always about the smart or the intelligence side of things, like the brain or psychological aspects. It's also about the physical aspects. So like some examples in terms of health, fitness, nutrition would be, you can get better at the deadlift. You can get better at meal prepping. You can understand what it means to be healthy, and what that actually looks like in terms of your daily eating habits. You can develop new habits by basically being persistent, being consistent, and basically putting in the work and the practice that it takes to get there. Whereas a fixed mindset really believes that abilities and understandings are relatively fixed. And no matter the effort one puts in, you cannot change where you're at. So basically, people with a fixed mindset are ones that believe that basically people are born with it, or people are lucky, or they're genetically gifted, and they don't give them or other people or themselves the credit for practicing the things that they're good at. So that's really like the surface level understanding of growth versus fixed mindset. And what I want you to really understand and take away from this is that you can have a growth mindset in one aspect of your life, but a fixed mindset in the other, or in another, not the other. Or you can have it in certain situations in one aspect of your life, but you could have a fixed mindset in another situation in that same aspect of your life. So what I mean by that is, let's say you believe that you can get fitter on the assault bike the more that you practice it. It's not always going to be hard. The only reason that it would stay hard is because you are able to increase your intensity levels on it. Whereas maybe you don't believe that you can get better at your squat because your form is just not the way that it should be. Okay. So I want you to understand that that's fitness, right? That's your fitness aspect of life, but you have a growth mindset when it comes to the assault bike, but not the squat. So just understanding that growth versus fixed mindset is not an all or nothing principle. It's very gray. Okay. So it can really depend on the situation that you're in and your beliefs around that situation and even your history around that thing. So, some more characteristics of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So, if you have a growth mindset, you see challenges as opportunities rather than threats. So, instead of getting stressed by a situation that might be challenging or new, or you don't really know what to do, you see it as an opportunity to learn, to grow, to improve as a person, and not a threat. So you're not having this stress response that a threat may produce within someone. Um, you take constructive criticism and use what works for you. So basically, what that means is if someone were to give you constructive criticism, which means that it's not it can be beneficial for you. It's not like criticizing in a way that's harmful, I guess. And whatever that constructive criticism is, you can hear the person out, you can understand their side of whatever they're seeing, their perspective, and you take whatever works for you. Maybe you try it all, and there's only certain aspects of it that do work for you. So you don't just disregard it entirely and get upset about them giving you criticism. And you don't always have to use what they're telling you if it doesn't end up working for you, but you're willing to give it a shot and you're open to hearing that feedback. Another one is you see hard work and dedication behind other people's success. So instead of saying, oh, that person's lucky, oh, that person's been, they're just genetically gifted, they were born an athlete, instead of thinking about it that way, you see their years of hard work, their day in and day out dedication, them working with coaches or other people to help them improve. And you realize that not only can they do that, but you can do that as well. The mundane is the process to big goals. So what I mean by that is like the day in and day out work. It's the process, and that's what you can focus on rather than getting overwhelmed by achieving the big goal and trying to just always reach for that goal. You are more focused on doing the things that are required day after day. You see mistakes as learning opportunities. So instead of feeling shameful about making a mistake or not wanting to reflect on it because you made the mistake, you see it as a way to improve yourself so you don't make that mistake again. Basically, it's kind of like that saying where there's no such thing as failures unless you give up completely. And I would honestly argue that that's not always the case depending on the situation, but that's where the growth mindset comes in. It's not failing, it's your ability to see how you can learn and get better from it. And then you also ask questions to help you get better. So even if that question may feel dumb to you, no question is ever dumb. So just know that first and foremost. And then, you ask even if you do feel that way because you want to improve. You know that if you get the feedback and take the constructive criticism, then you can use what works for you and improve yourself. Whereas fixed mindset characteristics would be you think you have to prove yourself to others. You think that trying and failing means that it's not meant for you. So, maybe try one way, maybe you try two ways, maybe you try three ways, and none of them seems to be working. You think that just means that it's not right for you. Whereas it might just mean that you need to try 50 ways, or you just need to stay consistent for X number of, days, months, years in order for you to get it. You assume people are where they are because of luck or genetics. I already talked about this. Making mistakes upsets you easily. So maybe you feel shameful, maybe you don't understand why you keep making a mistake. You don't really see it as a part of life or a part of the process. You feel defensive when receiving constructive criticism. And now this is slightly different than, like it being hard to take sometime or it being difficult to hear. but that's knowing how to put your ego aside, because that's really what it is. It's like your ego is being affected by the constructive criticism. So you can put that aside and hear out the other person without getting defensive. Whereas a fixed mindset, you can't do that. And then, something you might say is either you got it or you don't. So the main thing that I want you to take away from this is that the main difference in growth mindset versus fixed mindset is the difference is the permanence of intelligence and ability. So fixed mindset believes there is little to no room for improvement in any direction, whether it be to grow or to regress. Whereas a growth mindset believes that they are changeable with room for growth or regression. So that doesn't mean that growth mindset doesn't always mean that you're trying to grow or get better, or do something more. It could be that you also have the ability to regress, whether you want to or not, depending on how much you focus on said thing. All right. Cool. So before I go through this, I just want to take a second and ask, is there any situation where you can think of where you have a growth mindset, you see challenges as opportunities? Maybe you're always seeking constructive criticism or always asking questions because you're just so excited to improve and get better. And what situations do you have a fixed mindset in? Is it easy for you to point out, or is it more difficult? And what kind of feelings come up when you think about having a fixed mindset in a certain situation? Do you feel like pressure in your chest? Do you feel like a knot forming in your throat? Do you have butterflies? All of these are normal things, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, but I want you to be able to be mindful enough to pick those things out and realize that those are just part of normal human physiology. And, those things happen. You don't have to feel shame. Everyone goes through it. And just because if you have a fixed mindset, this is really important because it means that you can have a more growth-oriented mindset. You have the ability to change, and knowing is really the first step. So just take a couple minutes and see if you can think of anything. If you're listening to this after the live, shoot me an email or comment and just tell me where you notice either situation. Is there a situation where you notice that maybe you have a growth mindset on some days and not other days, or a growth mindset in certain situations but not other situations? So yeah, let me know. All right. So next, we're just going to go through some common phrases. If you notice that you say some of these things to yourself, then I want you to write them down, and ask yourself, how can you become more, what can you say to become more growth oriented? Or if it is a growth mindset phrase, how can you bring that perspective or mindset into a different part of your life that maybe has a more fixed mindset? So some of them would be, the way I eat is so poor for my health, but I can improve with the help of a coach. My running pace is slow right now, but the more I do it, the faster I will get. My flexibility is getting better because I'm putting in the time to make it so. Seek out challenging situations that push outside one's comfort zone. That's more of an action. And then asking questions, even if it seems stupid. All right. Like I said, there are no stupid questions. When you ask a question, that is how you grow. All right. And then fixed mindset. I'm never going to get into the habit of eating well. So never is very, very concrete. That's one word that you can know that, okay, this is a fixed mindset, right? Everyone's like, never say never. There's a reason for that. Getting in enough protein is so difficult. I'll just stop here. What I mean by that is, like, maybe you're at 80 grams of protein and Marissa says, I need you to get to 130. And you're like, I can't do it. I can't get to 130. It's just too difficult. I'm just going to keep doing 80 or 85. That is a fixed mindset. All right. I suck on the bike and it's miserable. This is just very concrete. So there's no really way for you to get out of it. So that makes it a fixed mindset. All right. Not reflecting because you're afraid of what you might discover. A lot of people don't reflect on their day, their month, their workout. They don't know what's actually going on because they're not looking back and assessing what happened. And by not reflecting, you're not able to grow. Reflection is actually one of the best ways that we learn as a species. So, as human beings. So if you're not reflecting, then you're not learning to the extent at which you could be. All right, not asking questions because you don't want to look or feel dumb. Saying things like, I could never, or I always do that. Some common misconceptions would be about growth mindset, that you're open-minded and, you just always see the positive things. That's not necessarily the case. Life is not meant to just be positive. There are positive and negative things that happen, but your response to that situation is basically what makes you have a growth mindset. So you can be open-minded and you can be positive oriented. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a growth mindset. You could be overly positive and unrealistic. So having a growth mindset would be being able to be open-minded and realize that you can grow from whatever's going on. Cool. So next, we're going to talk about the 3 psychological needs. So this is according to the self-determination theory, which is one of the most well-researched bodies of evidence or theories in the psychological world. So basically what it says is that there are 3 things that we really need psychologically in order to feel safe, to feel like we can improve, to feel like we can grow and, be growth oriented rather than feel stuck in a situation. So those 3 things would be autonomy, competence, and relatedness. I want to note that there is no necessarily order or anything like that in terms of these 3. This was just like the best triangle picture or that I can find. So it's not necessarily a hierarchy. It's more of like, you could think about it as a circle. All right. They're all connected in the circle. They're not necessarily one's better than the other. Okay. So I just first want you to know that. And then basically autonomy is behaving with a sense of volition, willingness, endorsement, and choice. So what that means is you feel like you have a choice in your life, in whatever that you're doing. And one way that I like to talk about this and would like to talk about more is taking radical responsibility. And basically, this is just a way of saying that you are taking ownership over your life and your choices. So an example might be, I didn't work out today because my kid was sick and my spouse couldn't watch them. And I had to stay home with them, right? That makes it sound like you had no choice in the matter. But another way of reframing it so that you can take radical responsibility is, I chose not to go to the gym because my kid was sick and I wanted to be a good mom and be there for him. Okay. So you are giving choice back to yourself, because that's really all it is. Like some people might say, oh no, I couldn't go to the gym if my kid was sick. Like there's just no way. Well, that has more to do with your values. And I'm not saying that's wrong. Like take care of your kids, take care of your family, but you are choosing to do that. So when you take radical responsibility, you have more autonomy in your life, or you have a feeling that you have more choice in the matter. And this is going to be really important, because when we don't feel like we have these 3 things, autonomy, competence, relatedness, it makes it really difficult to achieve goals that we set out for ourselves. Feel like we can grow as people because, when we don't feel like we can grow, sometimes it might be because we feel like we don't have a choice in the matter. We feel like someone is making the decisions for us, which is why I don't like giving people meal plans because you don't ever actually learn what you like, how to cook the food the way that you want to, and how to do it without me. Okay. I'm not trying to keep you forever. I just want to teach you to the best of my ability so that you can do it on your own. The next is competence. I don't know if you could hear that. That was lightning. But competence is basically mastering one's environment or, mastering or improving on whatever you are trying to achieve. This is where growth mindset comes in. Your perception of becoming a master or better at something that you are working on is your competence level. This is how well you think you grasp a concept or how well you think you can perform at something. And I think that the really important thing about competence is that you should not be comparing yourself to others' competence. You should be, this is where reflection comes in, focusing on how you are improving in that specific skill over time. And that's how you improve your competence, which can also improve confidence. All right, so that's where the growth mindset really comes in. But like understanding that all of these things play a role in growth mindset. The last one is going to be relatedness, which basically means how you feel related to others in one way or another. So this is kind of a way of saying, do you feel isolated, like you're the only one going through this, like you're the only one having trouble with this? Or do you have people to talk it through where you can realize, where you do realize that other people are having the same issues as you, other people are having hard time grasping a certain concept or a hard time getting a certain technique. So social support is going to be extremely beneficial in this situation because when we feel less isolated, we generally have better mental health, but also can understand and relate this back to growth mindset where you see that other people are struggling with it and then they're also getting better at it. So you see them growing, which makes you feel like you can also achieve that same thing. So social support can come from many things, and this actually is a skill, but one of them being a coach, another one being, like family and friends, but really other people that are going through the same thing as you, trying to lose weight, trying to get better at a lift, trying to improve body composition or gain muscle or increase your running pace, anything like that. If like real social support and connectedness comes from other people's understanding of what you're going through. All right, so benefits of a growth mindset. I do have some studies linked down here. Sorry if they're difficult to read, but Justin Berg and colleagues in a paper titled Getting Unstuck, the effects of growth mindset about the self and job on happiness at work, found that increased happiness, growth mindset increased happiness in the work and school setting. It also showed to have greater progress towards their health, fitness, educational, and professional goals. Another study from Chen and colleagues, which was called the Strategic Mindset and Orientation Towards Strategic Behavior during Goal Pursuit, found that seeking and applying metacognitive strategies led to things like better progress on, like things like GPA. So metacognitive strategies are basically just they're mental skills that you develop through practice such as ones that you can work on to improve your growth mindset, could lead to greater progress in things like GPA, but also, like I said before, health, fitness, educational, and professional goals. And then also higher growth mindset was associated with more positive diet behavior, and the inverse was true as well. So the more fixed mindset you had, the less positive diet behaviors you had. And that was from Shelton and colleagues in engagement and adherence with a web-based rehabilitation program for patients awaiting abdominal and colorectal surgery. Sorry, I guess I didn't have to read all of those. I'm sure you can see them. But yeah, those are just a few of the benefits of growth mindset in specifically a health and fitness related setting. All right, so I'm sure you've been asking, and I know I've been talking a lot, but how can we actually improve our mindset or, orient it more towards growth mindset and away from fixed mindset? So the first one here is really going to be about self-awareness. And, if you've been working with me for any amount of time, you know that self-awareness is something that I try to help bring to you more readily, especially from the beginning. So a self-talk log is going to be one way of improving your self-awareness of your mindset. So how do you actually know if you have a growth or a fixed mindset if you don't know what kind of thoughts you are having? All right, so basically what a self-talk log is you just start writing down your thoughts as you notice them throughout the day. You have tens of thousands of thoughts, and most people you ask could not tell you 5 of them. Okay, so it's not about actually writing down all of the thousands of thoughts that you have in the self-talk log, but it's writing them down when you notice it, and then also see if you notice a pattern. All right, so writing down the situation and the kind of self-talk that you're having is going to be really important in noticing those patterns. Okay, so the patterns essentially could be broken into growth versus fixed mindset. It's not always necessarily that way, but that is a good place to start. And self-talk can really be anything. Everyone has a monologue going through their head all day, every day. Sometimes we tune into it and sometimes we don't. I didn't talk about this today, but there's a network in the brain called the default mode network. And typically it is associated with negative thinking patterns. That's not necessarily what it is, but we typically tend to default to this network when we have rest time. So we tend to notice our thoughts when we are resting, when we aren't doing anything. And typically, when this default mode network is, decreased, we are more likely to take goal-oriented action. So like forward movement rather than resting state. So if you tend to notice thoughts when you're resting and not when you're actively doing things, that is most likely the reason why, because we can actually reflect on the thoughts that we're having. Anyway, so that's the first and most important thing for you to do, because if you don't actually know the kinds of thoughts that you're having, it's going to be pretty difficult for you to first identify the situations in which you have a growth versus a fixed mindset. This is going to be really difficult for you to actually change them. All right. If you don't have any questions on that, I'll talk about reframing. This is basically after you start your self-talk log. This is one way that you can redirect the way that you're thinking. So reframing is basically how can you reword your thoughts and perceptions to make them oriented towards a growth mindset. So basically what reframing would be, you notice a thought, you notice that it's not beneficial in the way that you would like it to be. And so we reframe it, not just to make you feel better, but to help you start to move towards that thought pattern as your default thought pattern. So let's say that, okay, I'll take this running example. Let's say that you're going for runs and you used to be an all-star track athlete, super fast, and you had kids, life happened, you still work out, but you're not really in running shape. You go out for a run, and like during the run, it feels really difficult. You don't feel fit at all. And basically, that's what you tell yourself. You're like, this is so hard. I suck at running. What happened to me? Why is this happening? I don't want to do this again. All right, so that is typical growth mindset. The reframing comes in, and it would say something like, I don't suck at this. I haven't practiced in a really long time. And therefore, I'm just not in the running shape that I'm used to. Another one might be like, oh, I'm so slow right now. I'm not as fast as I used to be. A good reframe, or not a good reframe, but a reframe would be, yes, I'm slow right now, but I've taken 10 years off of running. I'm going to be slow for a little while. All right. But with speed work, after I've got a good running base, I can get faster again. All right. So if you notice, reframing helps you take a fixed mindset and turn it into a growth mindset. So what I want you to do is practice that next. Okay. So if you have your self-talk log, just next to it, try and reframe all of those things. Now, if it's already in the growth mindset wording or orientation, you don't have to reframe it unless you think that there's something that can make it more beneficial to you. All right. I'm going to skip reflection first and go to seek learning opportunities. So basically, you want to seek new things that you're not used to doing, or you haven't done in a long time, or maybe you even feel like you aren't cut out for it. And I would urge you, if it's something that you are like completely new to and you're like, I really don't know about this, a coach would be really, really helpful in this situation, because they can identify things that you're doing and help you skip like 12 steps to, like, oh, you actually just need to do this one thing, instead of you being like, oh, well, I'm not doing this, so I need to do this. But no, actually, I need to do this and then this. And then, before you know it, it's like a year later. So coach can be really beneficial for that, but they can also help you point out when you are having a fixed mindset in a certain situation. Under this, I also put try new learning strategies. So different situations can call for different learning strategies. And if you're just used to learning one way, then it could be a really good opportunity for you to grow by learning new strategies that maybe will help you in different situations than what your normal learning strategy would be. And we'll go over this in future webinars, but just know that there's more than one way to learn, and it's okay to try different ways in a certain situation. All right, the reason I skipped reflection is because I think that you need to be seeking learning opportunities and then reflect on them. You can always also just reflect on like your self-talk log and how you reframed them. But just making sure that you're looking back on your day, your week, month, quarter, year, and thinking of the skills that you've improved on, how you've learned from the process, what you've learned, how you've become a better person. And that way you can actually see yourself growing, because you are putting in the time, the effort to do so. So reflection, like I said before, is going to be a very, very important thing in order for you to improve. What gets measured gets managed. So if you basically, reflection is the measuring part, and the managing is your ability to adapt after understanding what you've already done. All right. And then a huge part of this is going to be self-compassion. So the three things that make up self-compassion is basically your awareness of the situation, and your acknowledgement of it, your ability to relate to other people. So knowing that you aren't isolated in this, other people are going through this as well. And you can get social support from them. And then also just your ability to be kind to yourself. Self-compassion isn't just about like, oh, it's okay, I didn't go to the gym today, I was tired. Now, in some situations, that might be self-compassion. Self-compassion might be like not beating yourself up because you didn't go to the gym because you were tired. But self-compassion also has a lot to do with radical responsibility. So it could be that maybe you are more tired, but the gym or the workout that you're going to do today is actually going to give you more energy, and it will help you stay consistent. And the more consistent with it that you are over time, the more likely that it is that you will have more energy, you will sleep better. You will get all these benefits from the exercise. So yes, there are times and places where you do need to rest because you're tired, but also understanding that self-compassion has two sides of the same coin. All right. So sometimes to have self-compassion, you have to take the responsibility of doing the hard thing. But being kind to yourself, not shaming yourself for not doing it, also not shaming yourself for not going as hard as maybe you would on a day that you do feel less tired. And self-compassion is something that we will be talking about in a future webinar. So don't beat yourself up about it if you don't know how to do it yet. Here are 3 things that you can ask yourself, though, when it comes to self-compassion. If you're struggling with your mindset and trying to move towards a more growth-oriented mindset, what would be something that you would tell a friend who is struggling with this situation? So try and remove yourself from the situation and ask yourself what you would tell a friend. All right, that's going to be part of that relatedness. Another one that has to do with relatedness is how can you get social support for it? Sometimes self-compassion means reaching out to other people for help. All right, and then find something beneficial to say to yourself as well. So if it is a situation where you find yourself having a fixed mindset, like I think body image is one that can be something that comes up a lot. So instead of looking at the things that are maybe you don't like about yourself, ask yourself, what do I like about my body? What does my body provide me? And that can also be a way to reframe your mindset and what you focus on. If you're always focused on the negative, that's all you're ever going to see. So if you start to think about the things that are more beneficial to you, not always necessarily positive, but more beneficial in your growth as a person and your mindset, then it can really help shape the way that you perceive yourself in the world. All right. And then this is also has to do with like find something kind to say to yourself. And this can be really difficult for a lot of people, but I will say it is a skill. The more that you do it, the easier it will be to see the things that you are good at, the reasons why you should be kind to yourself. All right. And if you're a mother, I find that this is a really good one. But like, what would you say to your daughter if she were having the thoughts that you were having about yourself? All right. So we're going to do a little activity, and then I will wrap it up. So on your own, since there's no one here, what I want you to do is think about a situation in which you made a mistake. All right. I don't want you to think about the outcome or anything like that right now, but just think about a situation where you made a mistake. All right. So if you have that situation in your head, I just want you to ask yourself and write this down. How do you feel when you make a mistake? In particular, that mistake, if it helps. All right. Now, thinking about mistakes in general that you've made, is it different for different contexts of your life? If so, do you notice a pattern? So if you made a mistake in the kitchen or in the way that you're eating and you perceive it as a mistake, how is that different from when you made a mistake at work or made a mistake in something that you really enjoy or really are good at? If, like, let's say eating consistently is something that you're struggling with, all right? So just think about different contexts. How does that mistake affect you? Or how do you feel? All right. And then how do you think other people see your mistakes? Again, think about it in different situations. How do you think people see it when you make a mistake in the gym versus in your nutrition or in your work or as a parent or as a friend? All right, are they different? Right, going back to that specific mistake that you thought about in the beginning, have you discovered something new from that mistake? All right, and then have you ever been excited to make a mistake? This one's interesting, right? Like, excited to make a mistake? Like, why would I be excited about that? But that's really where the growth mindset comes in. You know, the people who aren't afraid to fail or aren't afraid to make the mistake are usually the ones that can learn from it faster and grow from it because of it. All right, so that has a big thing to do with growth mindset. And then how can you encourage growth over achievement? This one I found from an activity that you can do with with kids, which is really interesting because you should be fostering a growth mindset in your kids as well, because you want them to be able to be growth oriented, to know that they can grow and improve on things by time and effort instead of, only being achievement oriented. But this is for you. So, you could think about it in the context of your kids. Like, what would you tell them to encourage growth over achievement? And how can you relate that to yourself? So instead of achieving a 150-pound snatch, what can you learn from improving on the snatch, even if you don't hit 150 pounds by X date or ever? All right. Now I want you to see if you didn't do this, like I want you to go through these things, but I want you to see if you can apply this to other parts of your life. Maybe do more fitness examples, maybe do some more nutrition examples, maybe jump into health and wellness, since that's what I'm oriented towards. But it could really be taken into the context of any part of your life. So I encourage you to do that. And then what I'll be doing is sending out I'll give you a self-talk log. I'll give you some examples of reframing so that you can reframe your self-talk. And then I'll also give you some questions to help you reflect. All right, I try to do this weekly with the questionnaires. So if you're pretty consistent with that, you should be used to these reflections, but I encourage you to dig a little bit deeper. Don't just give like 1 or 2 word answers. I want you to really get detailed about this. All righty. So I hope that was helpful for you. I really hope that it recorded my slides. And yeah, if you want more of this, you really liked it, like let me know. They will be coming to you every month. If you are a client, you get them for free, but next month I will be opening them up to the public as a subscription. So I'm super excited about that. And I hope that this can just be super helpful for people to change their mindset, use mental skills to improve their life and optimize their living. Yeah, that didn't really make any sense, but you know what I mean. All right, have a great day.